This is an odd camera angle. Hey everybody, how's it going? I wanted to make a video about NASA and compartmentalization. I met two people at the conference. Both of them said that their father had worked at NASA. One of those people was a flat earther, and one was just a guy who was sitting at the bar who asked me a question about what was going on at the hotel. Anyway, when I told this guy, I said there's a group of people here who no longer believe that we live on a spinning ball. He started laughing hysterically, just hysterically laughing, and I immediately went into defensive mode and started throwing out flat earth proofs while he's laughing. And finally, when he stopped laughing, he was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, but my dad worked for NASA." And I was like, okay. So then I went into NASA mode. I said, well, I'm not saying that they didn't build rockets, and I'm not saying NASA didn't shoot the rockets up in the air, because they did. I'm just saying that they didn't go into outer space, and that they never went to the moon. And anyway, I was standing there waiting to order something, a food order from the bar, and the bartender had come over to take my order, and he his attention was somewhere else, and I placed my order, and I left him one of those little pamphlet brochures. I said, hey, here's, check this out. It'll only take 5 minutes. Look at some of this stuff, and see what you think. So I left it at that. The other lady that I met that was a flat earther, she worked on a cruise ship as a bartender. Anyway, I met the woman that I met whose father, she said that he swears up and down he worked on something very specific for the lunar module or something, some kind of coating or something for the exterior. But she had worked on a cruise ship as a bartender for years and spent a lot of time at sea. So she had first-hand experience of the flat earth. And I guess what I was going to talk about was compartmentalization. I work in a factory. It's an automobile assembly plant, and we make two separate vehicles here. It's one of the largest. I think it's the largest one in North America. But anyway, there's each vehicle has its own separate body shop, its own separate paint shop. The main building is where the final assembly takes place. There's a trim department, a chassis department, and then there's the point where they all come together. They're at opposite ends of the building, two different vehicles. And then anyway, the place is huge. If you ever get a chance to tour an automobile assembly plant, you should. It's amazing. But anyway, I was when I first started, I was 19 years old. I'd never seen anything like it. My eyes were like, huge. They drove trains, full-length trains, into the building to unload. I mean, there was robots, welding, and I'd never seen anything like it. It was just amazing, and it was so big. I was afraid I was going to get lost. Somebody had to take me downstairs after they determined where I was going to work. I was going to be on the frame line, and it's a really dirty area back there. So someone showed me the locker room, showed me where to get coveralls at, and then they took me back upstairs to the assembly line where my job was, and somebody else showed me how to put gas tanks in. And for 10 hours a day, that's what I did. Put in the gas tank, put the straps on it, loose assemble the bolts that hold it in. If it took a skid plate, put the skid plate on, loose assemble that, tighten down some of the bolts. There's some other things, but I was working my butt off, and I'd never worked that hard in my life. So when it was time to quit, I went straight to the locker room, washed up, changed clothes, and went straight home. And for at least a month, I was concerned that I would get lost. I mean, I knew how to get from the locker room to my job on the line, and from the line back to the locker room. I didn't go anywhere else. And for at least a full month, I was assuming that I was building a Ford truck. I was putting gas tanks in Ford trucks. There's a sign out front with the big blue oval, but I didn't know for a fact that I was assembling a Ford truck. I saw the frame and I saw the gas tanks, and that was it. I was assuming at the final assembly area there would be a truck there sitting there on the line, but I didn't know for a fact. I was assuming that. One day after work, I decided to follow the line around, to walk it, to see where it went, because I didn't want to do that while I was on break, because again, I was afraid I might get turned around and get lost and get in trouble for coming back from break late. But I followed it through the different stages of assembly. I could see it, where they put the tires on it, and the exhaust and the engine and the transmission, and then where they put the body and the bed on there, and got down to the end of the line, and sure enough, there was a truck sitting there with that big blue oval in the grill. I was putting gas tanks in Ford trucks. So, I was no longer assuming. I followed it around. I knew for a fact we were building Ford trucks. So, fast forward 34 years. Not once in the 34 years that I've worked for Ford have I followed one of those vehicles to its final destination, which eventually would be someone's driveway or garage. I'm still assuming that that's where they go. I see the vehicles that we build. I see them go out the door. I can watch them load them up onto a rail car, or I can watch them load them up onto one of those car haulers, and I can watch them drive off into the distance until they disappear. But I don't know for a fact that they're going to end up in somebody's driveway. They could be driving them somewhere and then running them off a cliff into the ocean, for all I know. As I just assume. Somebody might say, well, there's a dealership that's got vehicles on the lot, which is true. I could drive by a dealership and see vehicles, and then a month later drive by and see different vehicles. But that doesn't mean those vehicles that were there a month ago got sold. The dealerships could be rotating inventory to make it appear like they're selling vehicles. I don't know, because like I said, I've never followed one of those vehicles to its final destination. Between the two products that we make right now, we're building like 2,000 vehicles a day. Truck runs 3 shifts, 40 hours. They build trucks 7 days a week. We build 2 shifts, 5 days a week, and we're running 50 hours a week, and that's like 49 weeks a year. We probably build 100,000 vehicles a year. I don't know for a fact that they make it to where they're going. They could be driving them off into the ocean, and it really doesn't matter to me. There's only really 3 things. A, that we build a quality product, because if they're being sold to the public, that's really the only way to assure job security, is to build a quality product. That makes sense. 2, when Friday rolls around, I get my paycheck. And number D, all of the above. So if they're taking them somewhere and driving them off into the ocean, if that's what they want to do with them, fine. As long as I get paid. And there's a lot of people that work where I work that are proud that they build Ford trucks. I think that's their new advertising campaign, built something Ford Pride, or with Ford Pride, something like that. There's a lot of people that are proud that they work at Ford, which I'm sure there's a lot of people that are proud that they work at NASA. But the NASA employees go to work every day and they do their job. And yes, maybe they got to watch a rocket launch, but it doesn't mean it went to the moon. It doesn't mean that there is a rover on Mars. Somebody was on Instagram was trying to tell me, Well, if it wasn't for NASA, you wouldn't have memory foam mattresses or wireless earbuds or Air Jordans or Tang. I'm like, it doesn't mean we went to the moon. Not doesn't mean we're out. They're out in space. It's an actual company. They do research and development. We do get some benefits from NASA, but it's not because they went to space or they went to the moon. Lots of people work there. They do their jobs and they go home. If your job is to sit in a room and monitor data, that's what you do. Doesn't mean that data is coming from a rover on Mars. It could be coming from the room. It could be coming from one computer monitor to your, to the side of you, or another room, the room next door. You don't know. You sit there and you do your job. They have a computer that simulates the stuff and feeds the data back to the individuals that are monitoring this stuff. They program a computer with the information that they want to put in the computer. Like, say Mars is however many miles away and they're going to send a spaceship that travels. It's just a word problem for the computer. The rocket's traveling at 7,000 miles per hour or minute or whatever it's traveling at, and the computer works out a simulation and feeds the data back to the control room. And that's it. So basically, I think that's all I wanted to do. Was I have some experience with compartmentalization. I mean, it's not classified top secret stuff, but there's people who work in the body shop that spend their whole career in the body shop. They never see the finished product. They're assuming that it's a Ford truck, or we build the Ford Transit, that we have a stamping plant. There's people who do nothing but stamp sheet metal all day. They don't see the finished product. They're assuming. And basically that's how it works. Not everybody at NASA is in on the deception. They put on a good show, but they're not going to space. There's no evidence for it. They can't get the images. That's something else. You ask most people if they trust the government, they'll say no. Even the Globies, you ask them if they trust the government, they'll say no. But then you ask them for proof that they live on a spinning ball, and they'll jump on their computer, type in www.nasa.gov. .gov, does that tell you something? It's a government agency. They just said they don't trust the government, but they go to nasa.gov for evidence that they live on a spinning ball. And then I think their brains just shut off once they get to the NASA website. Their images say artist rendering. They say composite image. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, I guess that's all for now. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later.